So thank you very much for your nice words. Good late afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I will be speaking about satellite-based land monitoring solutions for environmental compliance assurance and really promote Copernicus and the use of Copernicus. Just as an outset, the EU has the highest environmental standards in the world. In the last 40 years, the EU has embraced more than 200 environmental directives and dozens of regulations to improve the quality of the environment. Laws in a statute book may provide some comfort, but within effective implementation, without effective enforcement, they are very meaningless. And there's clearly, or there has been clearly, a gap in between these issues. Now, monitoring and reporting on the state of the environment is of utmost importance. And it is, if you want, the raison d'etre of the European program of Copernicus, one of the pillars of the European space policy. And it is a fantastic program, and it is delivering wall-to-wall results, operational products and services for land monitoring, also other fields, but particularly here I will be referring to land monitoring. Just to remind us, and when we look at the city of Antwerp, this is what we had, and it is still a fantastic program because we can look back for a very long time. It's Corinne. And this is what we have now. This is the so-called HRLs, the high-resolution layers. This is a layer on imperviousness. This is a layer on water and wetness. This is the grasslands, and these are finally the forests. So this is it's a leapfrog forward in terms of spatial resolution, in terms of temporal resolution. And it is not anymore delivered on a Bose stamp or on some small areas. It is being implemented by European organizations, by companies, for the entire continent. It is what we refer to the EEA 39, so it is the 39 member states of the European Environment Agency. And this is where these products are available. Most importantly, and following the INSPIRE spirit and the INSPIRE directive, these data are not sitting somewhere on a shelf and are very difficult or impossible to be accessed. They are fully openly and fully transparent in being made available. You can download them, you can do your own applications with these products, and these are not some, very important to say, these are not some maps or some land cover classifications. These are quality controlled products, so they have certain accuracy standards. They have a guarantee that when you're using this product, you know what you're using and what you're getting. We have built a platform around this, a specialized cloud platform, landmonitoring.earth. It is a I would say unique solution for making land monitoring in high resolution. It's fully built according to Space 4.0 standards. It is effective for environmental monitoring and enforcement and verify and enforce compliance. So you don't need to be in possession of high supercomputing facilities in order to use it. You can use it on a normal web browser, and you can do your analytics in the area you're looking at, or in the region, or in the country, or on the continent you want to get your information on. Again, it is much more than land cover maps. It is statistics. It's data that can be analyzed and that is readily available and can be downloaded from the European Environment Agency websites. More than that, it's not as it used to be for a long time, one snapshot in time. It is really providing dynamics. It's here you can see the vegetation dynamics, so it is providing, and these data are being provided over and over again. So it is not a one-time snapshot. It's being done every 3 years at the moment, and the temporal resolution in which will be repeated will be even increased. I would like to, after having done my part of promoting Copernicus, the program and the land monitoring part, which is being implemented by the European Environment Agency, I would like to draw your attention to a project, a Horizon 2020 project. It's entitled EnvironLens. It is just about to start. It has with DLA Piper, one of the biggest law firms in the world, on board. And it is really to support and successfully implement of environmental policies to make it possible to globally access data, easy to use, cost-effective, cross-domain monitoring of law enforcement. It is the vision, of course, to become a widely accepted tool and law enforcement service. There is 4 cases that are being looked upon. There's an illegal clear-cutting service. These are potential scenarios. They may be expanded in this project. There is one on controlling the agricultural subsidies. And then there is, I said 4, so there is polluter prosecution, one on the air domain and one in the marine domain. As I said, this is a Horizon 2020 project, and it is about to start with one of the largest law companies in the world on board. Last but not least, I would like to show here an example of this is not work being done by us. This is work being done by the Austrian Federal Environment Agency. They have given me this permission to present this here because we think it's very relevant. We have, let's say, entitled this slide, Putting the Copernicus High-Resolution Layers to Work. So what they are using the high-resolution layers for in Austria is for the Alpine Convention, the Convention on Biological Diversity, as well as the Natura 2000 network. And the green infrastructure is a central pillar for them, and the maintaining of ecological corridors in the high-sensitive alpine areas of Austria. What they are looking at here is basically they look at the imperviousness layers. They combine this with all the road networks, with all the railroad networks, and they overlay it with the ecological corridor and ecological connectivity. And based on getting all this information together, they are building here cases, and they are prioritizing investment decisions with the road networks, with the railroads, basically to build ecological networks and ecological bridges in this case. So this is a green bridge railway that is existing. On the right-hand image, on the left-hand image over this highway, there is a green bridge highway that is in discussion. And this is really some work they are doing by using the high-resolution layers from the European Environment Agency. And of course, not only the high-resolution layers, they combine this with all other sorts of data on highways, on migration of animals, of protected species. So it's a very good and neat example. Again, it's not our work, it's work of the Federal Environment Agency of Austria. And there's many more examples that they are, where they are using the high-resolution layers, the Copernicus layers, for their day-to-day work and implementing their policies and, of course, also enforcing the environmental laws of Austria. With this, I say thank you very much for your attention, and if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them, if I can. Thank you.
Well, I'm Omar, a researcher in UCL, Belgium. I'm here to introduce ECOLAS project, focusing mainly on using Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 data for producing high-resolution layers for Copernicus, or improving the existing high-resolution layers. Starting from the name itself, ECOLAS stands for Evolution of Copernicus Land Service based on Sentinel data. The main objective is improving the existing layers and for sure producing something new for Copernicus community. The consortium working on this are different institutes and entities. Two mainly are private companies, GAF from Germany and CERS from France, and three in research institute, GEOINT from Austria, UCL from Belgium, and DLR from Germany. This project is supported mainly by Horizon 2020, and it is existing for 3 years, starting from 2017 and ending 2019. Coming to the concept, mainly we are using a high volume of Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 data, or Sentinel-1 only or Sentinel-2 only data, to improve actually existing high-resolution layers, mainly in previousness, agriculture, forest, and the grassland. Today I'm going to introduce grassland, and we are going to introduce something new for agriculture, which can be considered as a high-resolution layer existing in 2020. Mainly, we are working on 5 sites over Europe. We are calling them here the central site, west and east, and north and west-east, and this one, I can't pronounce the name. As a simple story for high-resolution layers, it's existing since 2012. Simply, they were selecting the best scene to represent the layer, and it have been much improved in 2015, producing high-resolution layers of imperviousness, forest, and water. And 2018, they produced grassland and small woody features and water wetness. Our task is to improve these existing layers. In particular, to use high volume of Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 data by increasing the automation of the process, and for sure, updating the existing data. Instead of every 3 years, it will be every 1 year. For sure, the cropland or crop type identification maps are not existing up to now, but we are in the process to produce something for Copernicus community. The main approach used by the 5 partners of the 5 sites is simply pre-processing the existing data volumes from Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2. Some slight difference between the procedures for pre-processing are existing between the 5 groups. And then we trained the classifiers to build the classification model, and after that selecting the feature simply, and then moving forward to the classification on the full data set, and after that interpreting the data and going to the post-processing, mainly for grassland and the crop type. Here is an example of the existing high-resolution layer of grassland, 2015. It was available just a few months ago, maybe 2 months. It's a 20-meter resolution, and our task is to improve this by using Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2. This is an example of the prototype we have produced over the central site. This has been done by GEOINT Research Institute, reaching a very high overall accuracy of 97%. If we look at the left side of the figure on the left side, actually, we find the prototype produced by our group, and on the right side is the polygons of these fields, and we see the high match between both of them. Moving forward to the use of optical and radar data, Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 for crop type identification. We produced such kind of features from both data sets. mainly mean standard deviation and the coefficient of variation for Sentinel-1 and for Sentinel-2. We use the NDVI and many other statistics coming from related to the NDVI. This has been done by GAF. This is the crop mask in a comparison to the existing high resolution layer of Grassland 2015. And if we see on the right side with a zoom in, we see that high complement between the crop mask and the existing high resolution Grassland. This is one of the products we have for crop type identification. 16 crop types over the central site produced by GAF with a very high overall accuracy of 89%. And for sure, for all the crops, we have most of the crops of very high producer and user accuracy as well, reaching up to 90%, maybe more. This is another trial for crop type identification over the west side, which is existing of two parts. One of them is a French part, and the other one is a Belgian part. For the French part, we use Sentinel-2 data only. Unfortunately, we have an overall accuracy of 77%. However, by grouping the classes we have, we reached identification between cropland and non-cropland of overall accuracy around 94%. This is actually a zoom in to show that the data we have, showing that the data we have almost matching the polygons we have for this crop type identification. For the French part, for the Belgian part, we used two data sets, Sentinel-2 and Sentinel-1 data. And we have two ways of classification, actually. One is to train and run the random forest classifier for each tile individually. And the other one is selecting the best tile, giving overall accuracy. When this tile, we use the training sampling to run the classifier to the other tiles. As expected, the first approach was successful in all stages and giving very high accuracy while running the random forest classifier over one tile and getting the sampling. The training sampling of this tile to apply for the other two tiles didn't produce that much overall accuracy. Indeed, the overall accuracy was around 88.8%. Or maybe in general, we can say around 85% for all the crop type we have, which it's around 159 different classes. And once we group these similar classes to each other or together, producing or ending up with 24 classes only, the overall accuracy is a little bit improved. And then applying the majority filter, the overall accuracy highly improved, reaching maybe up to 90% or more. This is an example of we can say the last product of the prototype over the 3 tiles over the Belgian part, including 24 crop types. This is actually a comparison of between the crop type and the crop types identified over the 3 tiles using F1 score, which showing the stability of the approach over the 3 tiles. Here we see that the crops having high F score in one tiles having the same or almost the same F1 score over the other 2 tiles, which are proving the stability of the approach. Also, we see that the crops having higher capturing higher areas in reality, actually giving a high stability and higher F score. From this, we summarize and conclude that the use of Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 data, high volume, can be of high benefits to improve the high resolution layers existing right now. And for sure, we have a preliminary study or a promising results for producing high resolution layer for agriculture, which can be useful for Copernicus 2020 missions. Thanks. This is
Okay, thank you everyone for attending. And today I'm going to talk about the crop monitoring based on the automatic classification with inspired data and Sentinel-2 satellite imagery. And actually this topic has been addressed multiple times during these two sessions before. So basically, European Union, as you all know, is supporting farmers with common agricultural policy, including the direct subsidy payments for the farmers. And one of the controlling tasks that the member countries should do is the crop type identification. And basically, this has been now done by doing the on-the-spot inspections or by manually looking at the remote sensing imagery. According to the European Commission, however, crop monitoring could be carried out using the automated remote sensing imagery classification using remote sensing imagery such as Sentinel-2. However, the overall accuracy in that case should be over 95% in order to consider the automatic classification valid alternative for the on-the-spot checks. So, here is where the Spatial comes in. I actually started on Spatial a year ago, and we were wondering what would be my master's thesis topic. And as I have studies on remote sensing, we decided to give a shot and try if this would work in Finland, actually. Since Finland tends to have really cloudy summers and the thermal growing season, so it would be quite difficult to perform this kind of crop type classification task here. So the main objective of our work was to generate a method that could be used to automate the classification with various kind of vector and raster spatial data in addition to the crop data, and to investigate whether it was possible to reliably identify the crop growing in land parcels by using machine learning methods and Sentinel-2 satellite imagery in Finland. So, datasets. As you know, we used Sentinel-2 products quite broadly. Actually, we used both level 1C and atmospherically corrected level 2A images, as well as multiple different masks. In addition, we used agricultural parcels obtained from Finnish Agency of Rural Affairs, so LPIS database. And we formed 10 crop type classes according to suggestions from the Finnish Agency of Rural Affairs. So when we were designing the method, we acknowledged that there are some challenges, especially in Finland. And one of the challenges was the weather. And because of the cloudy seasons, it causes troubles for the optical sensors to get images. So basically, there tend to be very few images per parcel which are completely cloud-free. That actually means that we should use also the partially cloudy images. And in the features, there are comparison between 2017 and 2018 cloud coverage. And 2017, it was quite cloudy. Another challenge was the class imbalance. So basically, the crop classes which we formed weren't completely balanced, and there were quite a few more spring cereal and grasses among the parcels than any other crop classes. And as you can see, the image has actually logarithmic y-scale. So this one shows the real distribution among the parcels in Finland. So we tried to design the method that could handle these kind of challenges. So basically the images and masks provided by Sentinel-2 were obtained from the Sentinel Hub S3, and then we generated two own masks in addition to the Sentinel-2 masks, and we extracted the clear pixel values from the images. So the parcel could actually contain clouds or cloud shadow, but if it has enough clear pixels, then we would use it anyway. Then there would be pre-processing and composing of the time series for the data per parcel, and classification, training, and evaluation and calibration. And the output of this method would be the trained classification model in addition to the results. And as I spoke, we used 4 different masks, basically 2 cloud masks, 1 snow mask, and cloud shadow masks. And 2 of those we generated ourselves. Basically, the extraction part, we took all the pixels per parcel of the clear pixels for parcel per each image, and then generated the statistical features of those values during the set period. And basically then we interpolated temporally the values in order to get the equal sized data for the classification. And also the filtering had to be made to make sure that there would be no parcels, no images that had only 1 clear pixel, for example. We tried multiple different types of machine learning algorithms, including time-weighted dynamic time warping, convolutional neural networks, artificial neural networks, random forest, etc. Multi-layer perception and support vector machines were actually the ones that produced the best overall accuracy among the machine learning methods, but we are still developing this method and actually testing different machine learning algorithms all the time. And here for the results of the method. For 2017, we achieved the overall accuracy of 89% with kappa score of 80. And one of the biggest problems was that the dominating classes actually were predicted quite well, but the other classes suffered from that one. Then for the 2018, we decided to make a little change for the approach and actually use 2 different models. One for the dominating labels, so the 2 crop types were in the one model, and one model for all the rest of the labels. And then we actually managed to raise the overall accuracy to 93% with kappa score of 0.88. But since we tried to determine could we do anything more to raise the overall accuracy there, we actually could. And there is a possibility to calibrate the model by dropping out the least probable predictions for each class in order to raise the user's accuracy of the class to the desired confidence level. And we actually, by dropping 2.1% of all the parcels, we managed to raise the overall accuracy to the 95% with a kappa score of 0.9. And basically, some of the crop classes suffered more. For example, the P over there lost all the samples in the calibration, but most of the classes still got good amount of labels. So, for the conclusions, the developed method actually works under challenging conditions and could be applied elsewhere where the conditions are actually much better. And then the imbalance of the class distribution is a major problem, but it is still solvable, and there are still matters we are doing in order to improve the classification. And then the crop classes should be actually grouped based on the biological and phenological similarities if possible, and this is where the policy actually needs to take this into account, since if we have one type of wheat and another type of wheat that are in different classes, it is they quite probably get confused with each other. Well, the reality is that no result method will be perfect in this sense, and there will always be some parcels that cannot be classified with certainty. But still, the results could be sufficient enough. This method provides timely results that are required to allow farmers to react to false negatives, since the farmers need to be able to prove that they actually have, that the crop actually is what they have announced it to be. And for the training of these kind of methods, it is difficult if no ground truth is available. So basically, the ground truth is always needed in order to get the training done right. But yeah, for the future directions of the project, we actually are modifying the workflow to further meet the European Commission technical guidance suggestions, and we try to make it as and meet all the suggestions that were presented there. Also, we are trying with testing the classifications with more machine learning algorithms, and all the time there will pop out some new ones, and we are more than eager to test them out. Also, there is possibility to chain multiple different machine learning algorithms together in order to get the overall accuracy higher. And actually, the crop class division and class formation is an essential part of the crop type, of the crop remote monitoring. And basically, the 10 classes presented here aren't necessarily the best ones, and also these methods should be tried with other kind of formations and divisions. Then we are trying to use soon we'll be using the Sentinel-1 remote sensing imagery in addition to the Sentinel-2, and maybe some other optical sensor as well, in order to get the best possible representation of the parcels. And then when we designed this method, we designed it with Inspire in mind, so this method could be used with other kind of applications, with other kind of Inspire data or vector raster data. Yeah, thank you for your attention, and please come to our booth, Spatial booth, to talk more.
I will speak a little bit more about spatial data needs in the new CAP. And I think in my presentation I will go even beyond the CAP, since, as you know, the Commission has put on the table a proposal for the new CAP that will be discussed, so it's still under discussion and consultation process, but we are already thinking about how to let's say, fit our practical considerations in this new CAP, and what will be the data needs in the new CAP as well. So first of all, why do we need to share existing data? We do need to share existing data because of policy monitoring purposes. So it lies at the administration, national administration, side, but also on the supranational European Commission side. So I'm talking here about policy monitoring for agricultural and rural development. I will speak a bit more about CAP strategic plan that is somewhere in this proposal. We need to monitor climate policy, so I'm thinking about LULUCF and other regulations that are being discussed. And we need to monitor also environmental policy. So that's why I think that this presentation fits quite well in the discussion of environmental compliance, and we even go beyond compliance, we go towards performance, how to demonstrate that the future CAP will be performing better, and it will also be performing towards environmental and climatic goals. There are also some other directives that you've heard about this morning. Public Sector Information Directive, of course INSPIRE, that we are all inside, and some directives about statistical data. So the future CAP has new priorities. Let me present 4 of them. First of all, a fairer and effective distribution to support across member states and farmers. Then we need to have a knowledge-based agriculture that is mostly based on new technologies and implementation of new technologies at different levels. Then, of course, we are going to have a higher ambition on environment and climate. That's why this collaboration is strongly needed. That collaboration we have already started with our partners and with the member states. And as I have mentioned, we will be shifting from compliance towards performance in agriculture, so to monitor how we progress towards the targets. Focus on performance. In the new strategic CAP plan, every member state will have common objectives, a set of indicators and type of interventions to choose from. And there will be a discussion about assurance, so how to link expenditure to output. So it will be monitored through common output indicators. Then monitoring itself, so checking progress towards targets, and we need to feed common result indicators. And last but not least, the policy performance overall, so assessing how performance is going towards objectives that we set. It will be done through common impact indicators. So as you see, there's a lot of discussion about indicators that we have to feed with data. That's why we are trying to define what are the data needs, who can provide the data to feed indicators and to demonstrate performance at the end. Indicators from climatic and environmental domain that I'm focusing here on, it's indicators about climate change, mitigation. Then another one about enhancing carbon sequestration, for example, in agricultural practices. Another one, improving water quality. We had also a presentation here about water quality and quantity in the environmental, agro-environmental and climatic considerations. Maybe one more, enhanced biodiversity protection. So we need some indicators on this. In the CAP strategic plan, first of all, the member states will have to provide an analysis of agricultural, climatic and environmental situation. And I think that one of the key points here, it is the newly introduced geospatial aid application. So now, every year, a farmer needs to provide her application using geospatially enabled tool, where he or she indicates agricultural parcel boundaries and define maximum eligible areas for which he applies for. Then we have information about arable land, permanent crops and permanent grassland coming from LPIS system, land parcel identification system. Then the farmer will also define what kind of uses he does, so practices and activities on the land, for example, for crop diversification, and also what kind of ecological focus areas he is using or maintaining. And this information is extremely important to gain knowledge about agricultural practices, environment, and climate for further considerations. And of course, also we have seen a couple of presentations on Copernicus services. So these services can also be somehow validated through the ground truth coming from the GSAA applications of the farmers. So there's a richness of information in LPIS and its extension, GSAA, coming from the integrated administration and control system. Then in the CAP strategic plan, a kind of analysis should be performed to see what is the performance of the whole system. It will be done through the indicators that I was mentioning, output indicators, result and impact indicators. And of course, we have to connect here our area monitoring approach, as Pavel was mentioning before, showing what is the performance of the system. From the agricultural point of view, we need a further and a stronger collaboration with climate and environment. We have already started discussions with our colleagues from different DGs, not only from DG Klima and DG Environment. We need to think how to collect and how to share collected data, collected through remote sensing, studies, research project, administration, and other sources. A short slide on LULUCF. So you know that the framework will be in place from, the reporting for the framework will be in place from 2021. The geospatial information will be needed for the reporting purposes. And from the environmental point of view, we are talking about Natura 2000, biodiversity, and different indexes concerning, for example, birds on the farm that are of high importance. Already a lot of data are available. Some LPIS and IACS geospatial elements are registered in different geoportals. As you see, data provided through our colleagues from environment. We see that INSPIRE geoportal, 415 member states LPIS related data sets are already there registered, and in eOpen data portal, 139 member state data sets related to LPIS are registered. So the information is already there, but we are still working on its harmonization and somehow standardization to be able to have a possibility of valuable and European-wide results. Some other examples that will be available. If you want to speak about these, we can meet at the coffee break. And the working LPIS portals in different member states showing what kind of data is already available. So this is the last slide where I will present a stepwise process for IACS data sharing that is under the discussion. We are in a deep consultation with other European institutions. I was mentioning DG Klima, DG Environment, but also DG GROW and ESTAT and JRC concerning IACS data sharing. So what data and under what conditions and how to do it. We have also consulted the member states at the different committees. The paying agencies, agricultural paying agencies are involved. We are working on a preliminary list of IACS data our IACS data to be shared under, of course, INSPIRE framework. The community is not afraid about INSPIRE. We have already some experience as far as quality assessment program for LPIS is concerned. It's already INSPIRE compliant, so I think that the resources are there and the understanding is there. We just have to work on the proper implementation of the IACS data sharing framework. thank you very much, and I hope it was useful for you. If you have some questions, I'm available. Thank you.
Well, I don't know what you think, but I found this really a beautiful, as I say, the season's final of this topic, Piotr's presentation. He introduced a number of very interesting concepts there, which we have been using, of course, already since a long time in many different areas. The concept of performance monitoring, not as much compliance. We find it back in the SDGs. We are trying to monitor performance towards goals that we have set, one way or another, not necessarily immediately compliance, right? Sometimes these goals are more vague. Look at our own directives, environmental directives, like Natura 2000, biodiversity. There we are striving towards favorable conservation status, performance towards. No real hard targets. We are not counting really the bees and the wolves and so on. It's different. It's about performance. Same thing is true on the Marine Strategy Framework directives, the concept of good environmental stage. Assessing performance is equally important, and it's not just, as perhaps it sometimes was the case in the past, looking where the money goes and to what measures and then say, yes, we have been performant because we have spent so much % on these type of measures. No, it's important to know where the money goes, but essentially in the end you need to measure your performance. These indicators are important. The one thing that I do hope is that, of course, through all the technologies, Inspire, satellites, and so on, and by bringing also observations from our biodiversity networks on the water quality, right, where really there is the impact, that we can bring that into the performance indicator. That's very, very important, that this data is being brought in. Biodiversity data is still heavily scattered around. Many different people are collecting this. Water quality observations, impact data, it all needs to become part of this performance framework. And I think the new CAP, definitely, we worked very hard together with the colleagues in DG Agri. Yes, we have been working, you can call that working as well. Sometimes we had a little fight and so on. But in the end, I think, especially when it regards this performance framework and the use of Sentinel data, of Copernicus data, of Inspire, of opening up the IAX and LPIS data for a wide variety of purposes, we have made really good progress. And what I also understand from the sessions today is that the science, the technologies, it's out there. Competences are there. Financial instruments are there. Now we need to upscale, and definitely we need to take into account these performance indicators, something to consider for us as well. I'm looking at my colleague Liam, that we need to work also towards contributing to these indicator frameworks with geospatial intelligence as well. Maybe it's not so much intelligence at that moment, it's more geospatial information, because it's not really an obligation to meet a target as such. It's clear indication. Now, we have 15 minutes of time. We benefit from the presence of my colleague Liam Cashman, who I would say is one of the main drivers between the environmental compliance assurance framework. Liam, perhaps would you like to say a little bit of explanation about where this environmental compliance assurance action plan actually found its origin, where it comes from? Can you, the microphone?
Thanks, Hugo. It came about because we were asked by our last commissioner, Commissioner Potocnik, who, by the way, took a very close interest in Inspire as well, and is recently in the news because of his association with the SOS report on livestock farming. But he asked us to come up with an initiative on environmental inspections. So we looked at classic environmental inspections, so people going out on the ground, checking to see whether rules were respected. But as we went deeper into the subject, we realized that it was too limiting. That if you look at why people comply with rules, why people don't comply with rules, you find that there are a whole range of explanations, and you need to engage with these different explanations. And that then brings me to, well, from that we then came up with a three-part concept. So the concept that if you are trying to ensure that people comply with rules, that you need to engage their interest to get them to comply voluntarily. So that's the whole aspect of promotion. And I've heard very interesting things this afternoon, in particular the possibilities of reaching farmers individually with information about that's very tailored to their own individual circumstances, which technology can now let us do. But that's one dimension. The second dimension then is the role of checking whether people comply. So that brings us into the classic area of inspections. But as we went into even the classic area of inspections, we found that there were lots and lots of different ways of doing inspections, including Earth observation, including what Hugo developed into the whole notion of geospatial intelligence. So this is one means of checking whether people comply. And then if we look at situations then where you have a lack of compliance, you need to do something about it. That brings you into the area of enforcement. So we wanted to bring all of these together, and we brought them together in this concept of environmental compliance assurance. And that's then also where we see, as Hugo said, it's like in terms of the Netflix analogy, we see different dimensions as we go through the whole exercise, so different parts of the puzzle. And that's why we try to integrate all the kinds of insights and possibilities that we've heard about this afternoon.
Thank you, Liam, for explaining a little bit about the background now. Again, the Netflix analogy. This is season 1. Okay? You can look forward to season 4, 5, 6, and they are only going to get better, of course. Now, thank you for being here, for still being here. This is like the graveyard shift, the last one of the day. But there's one question I would like to ask you. What are you going to take away from this session? What have you learned? That's my question to you. And of course, you're also now in the opportunity to ask a question, technical, political, whatever, to any of the presenters who are so kindly present here today, or to us, the guys from DG Agri, from DG Environment, whoever is here. So the floor is yours. Volunteers? The takeaway from Eurostat? Or is it a difficult question? Please, Hannes.
No, it's a takeaway. I saw statistical legislation just popping up in the last slide. Keep in mind, so I'm representing Eurostat, the statistical office of the European Commission, and we're getting data from all your member states, from the statistical offices. And if we're talking about monitoring agriculture production, keep in mind the statistical office also does it. So what we see at the worldwide level, from the UN level, the statistical offices in the world start to do crop type, crop estimate monitoring based on satellite data, Earth observation as well. And now we see it as well starting up in some member states in Europe. And I think there's a mismatch, or we don't have any connection yet between the work which we have seen here today and what statistical offices are doing in Europe. And for example, I know, because we have evaluated them, so the Finnish colleagues should talk with the Finnish statistics institutes because they plan to do some work on that one. So there's some mismatch yet, or at least from my impression from today, the community is not covering all the different end users for this kind of exercises which you want to do today. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Hannes. This was most interesting indeed. Because, of course, agro-environmental indicator is something we have been using a lot. We also have Janus here from the European Forum for Geospatial Statistics, who have been kind of allies of us in INSPIRE and Geospatial, Eurostat, in making clear to the statistical community that also statistics are geospatial information. They're always linked to an area, administrative, either to a statistical area, a NUTS, and basically they also start by observation, by survey, somebody asking a question whatsoever. I had interesting exchanges with Janusz in the past already about this topic. It's basically, it's all the same. It's all spatial and geospatial information. But it's true, Hannes, that we have a problem, a bit of a problem, let's say. How do we bring these kind of observation capacities, the result of these classifications, of this deep learning, artificial intelligence, into a stage or into a product that statisticians actually can accept with all their little rules and so on. And then I don't want to enter into the famous, there are statistics, and so on. So Janusz, please, I see that we welcome very much your view on this.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's true that we, as a statistician community, try to link statistical data with geospatial data, achieve added value, let's say. And this is a good example that we can use remote sensing for agriculture statistics. And what I learned from today, mainly, I like this. It was sustainable agriculture. I think we have to thinking about this sustainable, not only goals, but also agriculture. And my question is, what is the relation between these indicators, which we today learned a little bit, with sustainable development goals indicators? What is the relation? It is the same or different? And if different, why?
Well, thank you, Janusz, for the explanation and the question. Now, I'm looking at Piotr, of course, because the Sustainable Development Goals, these indicators, they were developed, let's say, by another group of people. But obviously, our own European indicators, how relevant are they? Piotr.
Thank you very much for the question. I will try to tackle it a bit. So in the designing of the new CAP proposal, all the sustainable development goals were taken into account. So we wanted to reflect this environment in the CAP legislation. Of course, the proposal that is put on the table is still under discussion, and it will still go through the legislative process. So in the end, it might be up to the actors involved to define the final list of indicators. But in the process of the development of the proposal, this was also taken into account, and CAP should respond to all the needs defined in the Sustainable Development Goals.
Well, thank you, Piotr. Another colleague of mine from DG Environment, please, Olivier.
Thank you, Hugo. I found very interesting the presentation of this afternoon because on one side we see that this new technology that Copernicus brings in terms of information, images, will help in the monitoring of the CAP. But on the other side, we see that this technology is also generating new technology in terms of precision farming. Precision farming becomes possible because there are big data that are stored, and you can have, as it was presented in the project Fatima, some precision farming equipment. Now I want to bring a nuance, is that precision farming will contribute, but will not give sustainable agriculture. It's particularly true with water and pesticide. It's not because precision farming allows to use less water that it becomes sustainable. In some places in Europe where you have no water, some crops that are really demanding in water are produced. The main issue is not to use less water, but to shift the crop. And it's the same thing with pesticides. Pesticides, precision farming could reduce the number of kilos of pesticides or liters of pesticides to be used, but it's still dangerous, and there are more and more reports that even if you use a very little quantity of pesticides, it has the same effect. Precision farming and this technology will help for nutrients, it will contribute, but it's not the sustainable solution at the end. The sustainable solution will come when this technology will also allow a revolution, a shift toward agroecology and nature-based solution. So I just bring this nuance just to make it not a wrong assimilation between this technology, precision farming, and sustainable agriculture. It's more complex than this. And last but not least, I think the issue is not to produce more with less. In a circular economy, is already to get rid of the waste. Let's remember that 30% of what is produced in Europe is wasted. So let's produce what we need, not produce more with less.
Well, thank you very much, Olivier. This was, I would even say, almost an excellent closure, almost an introduction for tomorrow, where we will have the green economy with Hans Bruning's discussion also around these topics. And one thing is clear from what you said. We are here in the diamond quarter of Antwerp, and the diamond has many facets. Okay? So it's quite clear we have only been touching on a number of these facets. A lot of other viewing angles will be necessary. But still, I think we are making good progress. We have finished with episode 1. We will be in touch on episode 2. And now, a warm applause for all our presenters, if they are still here. And one for yourself, otherwise we wouldn't be here either.